Hey, Pastor David, how are you?
I'm good, John. I'm ready to get bushwhacked by you.
In our random moments with
It's
Pastor
very
David.
random. It's very random.
You know, last night in our service, in our Wednesday evening service, you were mentioning how you like cars. In one of our previous random moments, I were to ask you what your favorite cars were. You mentioned that you look at cars as you look at art, as an art connoisseur. Even as you're describing the engine, you're describing in our Let's Talk Marriage, the engine that was sold.
Yeah.
You mentioned the block and the type, and what is it about cars that you really enjoy? Is it something that was maybe passed down from your father, or is it something you just picked up as a hobby?
That's a good question. That really is, because I've never really considered why I grew to appreciate cars. My dad used to work on cars a lot. Because he always bought cars that broke down. And so I can remember he had a 48 Chevy. My mom had a nickname for it. She called it the Pelican. But I've always liked two-door 48 Chevys because they're just, to me, they're really a cool looking car, especially when you bring it down a little bit and, you know, do a little work. And I've seen some beautiful examples of 48 Chevys. I've seen beautiful examples of 1950 Chevys and 52 Chevys. So I've always had an affection for cars like that because they remind me of family or of my parents. And so I don't even know when I began to like looking at cars, because that's all I really do is I look at them. I'm never going to be one of those guys who tries to collect, or I've never been a person with mechanical abilities to work on as a project. So to me, cars have always been more like something that I admire, like some people admire artwork. I think that some cars are so beautifully designed and so beautifully worked on that they're a work of art. But a work of art, you don't drive a work of art around, right. See? So I don't know that I'd ever really want to show a car of that quality. So on the one hand, I think my father, because he worked on cars on the side, sometimes my dad, on occasion, to try and make a little extra money for the family, my dad would purchase a vehicle and maybe clean it up a little bit and turn around and sell it and make a few dollars and all of that. But I would have to say my interest in and appreciation for vehicles was in the 50s when I was a young boy. I do remember drawing, I used to get a quarter and I'd get a nickel, and I'd use them for the tire circumference, and I would always draw 32 Ford hot rods, you know, and I was putting headers on them and things like that without even knowing what they were. I had just seen pictures of or those cars, and so I've always liked, as long as I can remember, nice looking cars. And so there are various cars over the years that I've had a great appreciation for. One of my favorite cars, for example, is a 56 Nomad. I think that the Chevy Nomad is a beautiful, beautiful example of one of the nicest looking station wagons you could ever have. I've always liked the 62 Chevy, 61 Chevys. Not too affectionate for the 60 or 59, but the 61 and 62, those are good looking cars, especially when they're dropped a bit and have a little wider tires and have some work on it, some paint and all of that. I remember getting in a 1963 Chevy Impala. It was a 409.
Wow.
And this guy, we were hitchhiking, my friend Bill and I were hitchhiking, and he picked us up in a 63 409. And he burned, you know, smoked the tires all the way up this hill, and then came down the hill and dropped us off because we were only just going over a hill. So that's one of my good memories, the 63. And even from the time I was a kid, you know, 64 Chevys were really cool. Then I started liking the 65 Mustang, because Mustang, you know, was the first, what they really would call a pony car, even though we had the 64.5 GTO, which was a beautiful car, and they had the larger engine. I think they had a 389, and they used to call it a triple deuce. They had three setup instead of a, what do you call it? The carburetor was in a 4-barrel, was 2 barrels. So they had three, they called it triple deuces or 3 deuces, you know, 2-barrel carburetors. I always liked that because it produced just the image produced in my mind power and freedom. And so I can go on and on about cars. I mean, I so much like them that my kids, my boys, as part of their hobby and relationship with me, also became aware of cars and also have liked cars, you know. And so for a number of years, I've taken my kids to the auto show in Los Angeles. We're not able to do it this year, of course, but that's been a family thing. Every Thanksgiving, we go to the auto show. And I walk with my boys and my son-in-law when he comes, and my grandsons, and we just walk around and just enjoy the beauty of the cars. And they have these places where they have the exotics, you know. So my boys like the Ferraris. David likes the Ferraris, and Joseph likes the smaller little what do you call them? He likes. Well, I can't remember, Suzuki, it's not a Subaru. I think the Subaru WRX, I think they call it. That's not my thing, you know, but he likes that. And other cars like that, he likes a smaller car with a lot of horsepower. So yeah, it's always been a hobby of mine. When I want to just kind of rest my mind, I'll look at Car and Driver or some other auto magazine, you know, and just look at them. But I'm not one who puts money into cars. I'm not one who would spend a whole lot of money on something that's going to, you know, I just don't do that. Because I'd rather save it for a rainy day or give a gift to my wife or something, or my children, than ever put a lot of money in a car that you don't get a return on. And so, yeah, so I like cars.
Out of all the classics that you listed, I mean, from the ones you just listed, if you came up with a favorite out of all those classics that you listed, would you make it a combination of some of those cars, or would you just the 62, or no, it's the 63? Which one would you lean towards?
Yeah, that's a hard one. That's, you know, to try and be real in my answers and give a real answer, that's a very hard question, because it's kind of like my appreciation for music.
Yeah, that's true, right?
You know, there are certain times that you wish that you had this or you could do that. If somebody were to say, I'm going to give to you a car, you don't have to pay for the gas and the insurance and the upkeep, it's just yours. That's a wide open question, because there are different cars that I think are so amazing, you know, like the Ferrari California. It's so beautiful, I wouldn't even want to drive it, let alone own one.
Or park it, right?
Oh yeah, because you pull up to get a cup of coffee and somebody's going to swing the door open and drive away. That happens all the time. And I never want to be the guy who's in bondage to those kinds of things. But if they said we could give you a Ferrari California, I'd say, well, that's tempting. If they said we'd like to give to you a 427 Cobra, you know, that's a beautiful car and a sport car. But then I think practically again, my wife Marie and I, our backs aren't the best, you know, and those things ride real hard. And so if somebody were to say, I'd like you to have this car and we'll take care of it, that's a hard one. Look at, again, 1963 Cadillacs, you know, DeVille's, those are cool cars. Yeah. I got my driver's license driving a 1963 Cadillac.
Are those,
you know,
big boats?
Yeah, talk about, I had to, you know, you have to do the parallel parking and the Y turns in small streets and that. But I got a 97 when I was 16. I could handle that vehicle, and I liked it. And they're a good road car, because I like cars that are comfortable if you have to drive for, you know, a couple 100 miles or more. So I've always liked those. I like them very much. But there's some beautiful cars out there, John. Again, I mean, even the Genesis that they have what is called the G90 Genesis. It's a very nice car. It's up there with all the BMWs and Mercedes. It's up there with them. It's less expensive, and it's more dependable, and it's less expensive to have to maintain. But I think that's a nice car because it's big, it's quiet, it's luxurious. But at the same time, you know, I like hot rods. I like something that can pick up and move. So a new Corvette would be nice, you know. But with the Corvette, you know, if I got a Corvette, it would be a 62, probably a 62 Corvette, and would have to be modified so it drives like a new car. So they probably have to give me a new complete frame and suspension and everything. Because the 62s, from what I've been told, I know the 63s did. The 62 runs like a truck. You know, it's kind of like a hard. So I'd want something at my age. I want something more comfortable and feeling more up to date, So, you know, again, I don't know if I could ever really say, oh, I'd like this because there's just too many beautiful vehicles out there. Maseratis, you know, are beautiful cars. I appreciate the beauty of the Italian craftsmanship on that a lot. And so it just depends on my mood. So I could never be put in a position of saying this I got was my dream car. My friend Bill had a 55 Nomad, and we used to drive around that in high school, and it drives like a truck, and the gasoline, you can smell the gas fumes coming in, because that's how it was in 55, right? So because of the being spoiled by the technology of the 2020, you know, or whatever, you know, today's technology, I don't know that I would like to own something that I'd have to repair all the time or be careful with or would be uncomfortable with. So I don't know. I just like looking.
May I ask you this last question?
All right.
If you were to cruise on the Autobahn in Germany, what car would you prefer?
In Germany,
yes.
Probably a big old Mercedes. Probably.
You just cruise down the Autobahn?
Well, I've done that. I've done that. We rented, not the big version of the Mercedes, but I used to do ministry in Europe, and we drove from Munich, Germany, to into Austria, and we rented. Actually, we had rented an economy car, and when we got there, they didn't have any, so they gave us a Mercedes, and we have traveled 120 miles an hour. You know, I've driven Mercedes on my own.
I mean, did the car shake at that time?
No, it's like you're driving on a pillow. And you actually sometimes have to get out of the lane so that the car behind you can pass
At
you.
120?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they have no speed limits in some areas, and that's quite a thrill to do that. But I team drove a Mercedes from, was it Athens, Greece, to Frankfurt, Germany. So we went from Athens, went north through Yugoslavia, went into Germany, and made our way up into Frankfurt. And I was a 2 or 3 day trip, and we drove Mercedes then, and that was back in '75. So my favorite luxury car, just in looking at it and think, is the Mercedes. You know, I've always liked Mercedes. So I think that Audis are beautiful cars, and BMWs are nice, but they have a younger kind of feel to them. You know, younger men like that, older men like myself, seem to gravitate towards Mercedes unless they're in some kind of midlife crisis. But yeah, if I could have a good sized Mercedes floating down the Autobahn, that would be fun.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Well, Pastor, thank you so much. I mean, you know so much about cars.
Well, I know what I like. I don't know much about cars. You would never want me to work on them. I don't know any of that. But I do like cars, that's for sure.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Pastor. And we'll
fun.
see you next week on Random Moments with Pastor David.
All right, man.
Thanks.